fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ ti ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Ètò láti fi mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ ti ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Àjànàkú kọjá mórí nǹkan fèrè, bàbá rere káwí parí. BGI TV, we are the pace setters. Bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣọ̀n station tí dòde.
Lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí mo kí gbogbo ojú tó ń wò mí káàkiri ayé, mo kí wa lọ́kùnrin lóbìnrin lọ́mọdé lágbà nínú ilé yìí. Mo kí wa pa káàbọ̀ sórí ètò ọ̀rọ̀ tó lọ ti àṣálẹ́ yìí. Eléyìí tí a mú wá láti ìkànnì Bàbá Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV BGI TV. Ẹ wá nǹkan fìdílé tàbí kẹ́ fìdílé nǹkan kẹjá jọjọ gbádùn ètò ọ̀rọ̀ tó lọ tí a mú wá sójú wòran yìí. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ bá wò wá látòrí Facebook, a wà lórí Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ Olàmìyí Adébáyọ̀, lórí Instagram Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ _22, ní orí TikTok a wà lórí Bàbá Gbàgede Ìmọ̀, àti lórí YouTube a wà lórí Gbàgede Bàbá Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV. Òun náà là wà. Ẹ máa bá wa buwọ́lu àwọn ṣánẹ̀lì wa yìí, kẹ́sì máa subscribe sórí YouTube wa, ẹ fọ́lù wa lórí TikTok, ẹ jẹ́ gbádùn wa dọ́gba. Lónìí oríire kan tí ọmọ Yorùbá ṣe ní United Kingdom ó ní mo fẹ́ kájọ jókòó kájọ wò. Jẹ́jẹ́ mọ̀ pé ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá nation ní United nílẹ̀ ayé ó ti kọjá bá a ṣe rò. Àwọn kan dẹ̀ kóra wọn jọ ní United Kingdom nílùú òyìnbó, nílùú ọba, ẹ jẹ́ sọ pé ìlú ọba, ìlú ìyá Ṣàlí tó ti di ìlú Ṣàlí fún rẹ̀ báyìí, King Charles ló sáà tiẹ̀ wà bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọ́n kóra wọn jọ, wọ́n fọ́ọ̀mù pátì, wọ́n pè ní Yorùbá pátì. Ẹ gbórúkọ tí wọ́n pè nígbà tí ẹ bá ń gbọ́rọ̀. Wọ́n wá pe bàbá kan, Dr. Olúṣọlá Òní, láti ìlú òyìnbó. Àwọn gangan ni wọ́n ṣagbátẹrù pátì yẹn. Ọmọ Yorùbá nìkan ló ní pátì yẹn náà ló sì wà bẹ́ẹ̀. Kò sí ìtàn sì fi dá pátì yẹn lẹ̀ torí Yorùbá nation ni. Ohun tó yà mí lẹ́nu pátá nìyẹn. Interest Yorùbá nation ni wọ́n ní tí wọ́n fi dá pátì yẹn lẹ̀. Kódà wọ́n sponsor candidate pàápàá nínú parliamentary election. Tẹ́ni yẹn bá wá ti dọ́rùn, kò sí tóun fẹ́ lọ jà fún. Báwo làwọn òyìnbó ṣe fẹ́ recognize Yorùbá nation? Pàápàá jùlọ tó fi máa dé United Nation. Ó ní nǹkan tí wọ́n torí ẹ̀dẹ́gbẹ́ yẹn sílẹ̀. Ó yà mí lẹ́nu gidi ní ìgbà tí mo rí fídíò yẹn. Mi ò ní gbà lásìkò torí pé wọ́n pe Dr. Òní wá, wọ́n wá ṣàlàyé lọ́rí kíníwín kí ni pátì yẹn wà fún, kí làwọn ṣe ń bẹ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ kájọ ṣé Yorùbá bọ̀ wọ́n ní ẹnu onípọ̀n láti gbọ́ pọ̀n ún. Ẹ jẹ́ àjọ lọ sí Yorùbá World Media tí wọ́n ti pe bàbá lálejò Dr. Òní. Ẹ jẹ́ kájọ lọ gbọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu wọn. Ó yá.
Ọlọ́run ọba tí ó dá wa, ọba tó ní wá, ọba tá a kì í tá a lè kì tán, Ọlọ́run tá a máa pè ní gbogbo orúkọ títí láéláé. Ẹ̀yin wa, ẹ tún káàbọ̀ sí orí ètò wa fún tòní. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọmọdé, adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àgbàlagbà, lọ́wọ́ ọkùnrin àti lọ́wọ́ obìnrin. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín pé ẹ ń bá wa tẹ̀lé àwọn ètò wa bí a ṣe mú wọn wá fún etí gbọ̀nyín. Lónìí kí ètò lóòótọ́ àtúmú wá ẹja ńlá òun náà tún ní bọ́ wá tún gbé ní òní yìí, nígbà tí a máa fi ọ̀rọ̀ jomitó ọ̀rọ̀ pẹ̀lú bàbá wa tí wọ́n ń bẹ nílé pẹ̀lú wa. Ọdún ni wọ́n, wọn ò kì í ṣe àìmọ̀ fún olùlóko. Ọ̀pọ̀ yìí náà ni ẹ ti máa gbọ́ orúkọ wọn, lẹ́ẹ̀tì mọ̀ wọ́n, ipa tí wọ́n kó nínú ìjàngbara Yorùbá yìí kì í ṣe kékeré ara àtọ̀. Wọ́n tó ṣì ń tẹ̀síwájú, wọ́n tó ṣì ń kó lọ náà. Bàbá wa tí màmá rí tọ̀wọ̀tọ̀wọ̀ dá orúkọ wọn lónìí tí a ó jọ ṣètò yìí ní kánmọ́kánmọ́. Àwọn náà ni Dr. Báṣẹ̀gùn Olúṣọlá Òní. Bàbá ẹ káàbọ̀ sí orí ètò wa. Àmọ́ ṣáájú kí n tó gbà bá wọlé, máa ṣàṣìkò rí kí àwọn ẹlẹgbẹ́ mi tí a jọ ń bẹ lórí ètò lónìí. Màá kọ́kọ́ kí Àkàlàmàgbò a jọ ń bẹ lórí ètò lónìí ní. Bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni máa ṣàṣìkò rí kí Yàgbó Ìyájò náà ló jẹ́ kí ẹ mọ́rí wa wò kẹ́tẹ́kẹ́tẹ́. Mo náà àwọn méjì kan náà tí wọ́n wọlé pẹ̀lú wa, ń wọlé pẹ̀lú Yorùbá Nation ni ò ní jẹ́ kí n lè dá orúkọ wọn. Mo kí àwọn náà pé wọ́n káàbọ̀ sí orí ètò wa fún tòní. Ẹ̀yin wa tí wọ́n wà nílé fẹ́ fi àsìkò kí wa pé bàbá wa bá a ṣe gùn ẹ káàbọ̀ sáàrin wa.
Kálẹ̀ o, ẹ kú ọjọ́ mẹ́ta. Ẹ kú ọjọ́ mẹ́ta.
Ẹ bá mi kí àwọn èèyàn nílé, ẹ bá mi kí àwọn èèyàn. Kí wọ́n mọ̀ pé lóòótọ́ bàbá ló ń bẹ pẹ̀lú bàbá ló wà pẹ̀lú wa lónìí kì í ṣe ẹlòmíì.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your invitation. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín pé pé yín pé kí n wá bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ lénìí. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo àwọn èèyàn tó wà ń tà tó dúró láti gbọ́ nǹkan tá a fẹ́ sọ. Oòduà á gbè wá o, ọ̀rọ̀ wa ṣeé ṣe. I'm going to be spending most of the time talking in English. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n kọ́kọ́ sọ ní òyìnbó náà without interjecting, so that bàtà tí máa parí yẹn tán àwa tún bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ ní èdè Yorùbá. Because ọ̀rọ̀ tá a fẹ́ sọ lénìí ni ọ̀rọ̀ political party tí mo dá sílẹ̀ ní ìlú òyìnbó yìí tá à ń pè ní the Yoruba Party. Ìyẹn ni mo fẹ́ bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀ lénìí. To just make it clear before we start, is that the Yoruba Party in the UK is already a party. It's already registered with the Electoral Commission, and we are already preparing for the 2024 UK parliamentary elections. But what I'm going to try and do today, which is going to be brief to allow questions to be asked, what I'm going to do today is really to explain why I felt that I should form a political party. Because it's not every day that you form a political party. And I felt that it was right for me to explain why. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. In order for the Yoruba nation, the Yoruba land, to regain the sovereignty that Britain took from us, that Britain took unlawfully from us in the 1914 amalgamation, the Yoruba need to have an effective political voice in London. Britain was where the Yoruba lost their sovereignty. We lost our sovereignty in Britain. And it is in Britain that we are going to regain it. There's no other way that we are going to get our sovereignty, I don't think personally, unless we get it from here. And it is important to note that Britain, the people of this country, are very obsessed with sovereignty. Sovereignty is quintessentially British. Sovereignty was at the heart of Brexit. Without sovereignty, Brexit would never have happened. Even when the British were in the EU, even when they were members of the EU, they did not give up the pound. They did not give up their currency. They were the only ones who refused to give up their currency. Because to them, to the British, the pound was the emblem of their sovereignty. If we take it further, sovereignty is the reason why Britain, America, and Europe, the reason why they support the state of Israel today is because of sovereignty. In fact, the British support for the Jews dates back to the Balfour Declaration of the 2nd of November, 1917, when Britain publicly pledged to establish a home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So, all that they're thinking about or their reasoning, it's always been about sovereignty. And what most of us don't realize is this, that the same kind of promise that Britain made to the Jews, Britain made also to the Yoruba by way of a treaty. That treaty, the treaty that the British signed with the Yoruba land, was intended to recognize and keep the sovereignty of the Yoruba land forever and ever, not for a few years, not for 100, forever and ever. And this is how the treaty came about. In May of 1888, Britain requested a treaty with the Yoruba land. So it wasn't that the Yoruba went to Britain to say, we want a treaty. No, Britain came to Yoruba land to request for a treaty. And part of the reason was that the French were already nosing around, trying to sign a treaty with the Egba and so on and so forth. So the British tried to preempt that by requesting a treaty with Yoruba land. And that treaty was concluded on the 23rd of July, 1888. This was a treaty between Queen Victoria of Britain. So it's between Queen Victoria of Britain and Alaafin Adeyemi of the Yoruba land. And the treaty was a non-cession treaty. Non-cession means that the Yoruba land did not give up any piece of their land. It was a non-cession treaty. And it was a friendship treaty. And it was a preferential trade treaty between two sovereign states. That is, Britain on one hand, Yoruba land on the other. Two equal states. Two equal sovereignties. And that treaty was ratified on the 16th of June, 1888. So it wasn't as if the treaty was floating in the air somewhere. No, it was actually ratified on the 16th of June, 1888. Now, for people who don't understand the importance of treaties, under international law, only sovereign states could sign treaties. The treaty is not just what anybody can just sign or whatever. It is something that is signed between sovereign states. Only sovereign states can legally enter into treaties. And the final point I will make here is this, that when Britain was planning to amalgamate its territories in the area now called Nigeria, they set up a Shelburne Niger Committee. That committee reported in 1898 on the feasibility of amalgamation. And what the report of the committee said, it confirmed that the Yoruba land was a sovereign state. And that report specifically excluded the Yoruba country from the plan of amalgamation. Let me repeat that again. When Britain set up a committee to look at the feasibility of amalgamation of the bits of Nigeria that it owned at that time, the committee reported that the Yoruba country should be excluded. And it's not surprising because Yoruba land was a sovereign state. So they couldn't include the Yoruba land in the plan of amalgamation. Now, when we compare ourselves, we compare the Yorubas with the Jews, the fact is that the historical circumstances of the two communities in the UK are totally different. And therefore, for us as Yoruba people to acquire political clout, we have to do it in a different way from the way that the Jews did it. And the view that you may remember that I was at one stage the coordinator of Ilana UK. So this idea of a political party has been coming. It didn't just occur overnight. And in fact, I've been discussing it with the Electoral Commission for nearly a year now before they actually allowed us to register the party. So the view was that a political party was the best way of acquiring the means of an ethnic based political party, that we have to have a party in order to fight for self-determination. Don't forget, as I said, I was part of Ilana Omo-Oduwa, and there are several self-determination organizations, and very active ones as well. But not one of them has made an impact on the British political scene. I mean, you can have as many organizations as you like. If it makes no impact on the political scene, which it doesn't even in Nigeria either, then you're wasting your time. What then came to us was this, that Nigel Farage, if you remember, those in the UK will remember the UK Independent Party. Very small party, but that party demonstrated conclusively that a new political party, even if it is small, could have a big impact. And during question, I mean, we can discuss the theory or the phenomena behind how a minority group can influence the behavior of the majority. So with all this in mind, with all this thinking in mind, as I outlined before, in February this year, we formed the Yoruba Party in the UK, which we call the Yoruba Party, or if you want to use acronym, YPUK. And we did it because we were fairly confident. We were confident that a small party, a small political party, can be successful, can be impactful. Just like UKIP. If you remember, it was UKIP that literally got Britain out of Europe. So that experience tells us that it is possible for a small political party, if it's properly focused, to do big things. Now, the immediate priority of the Yoruba Party, and I'm glad that I'm speaking to the media people here, the immediate priority of the Yoruba Party is to convince the Yoruba community in the UK that they have a very powerful voice. They don't know it, but they do have a powerful voice. And to remind them that actually the Yoruba are the largest ethnic minority group of African descent that live in the UK. That's how big we are. And what we decided at the Yoruba Party is this, that the parliamentary elections of this year provides the first opportunity to test the Yoruba voice. So we are going to be standing candidates in that election. And of course, naturally, the more votes that the party gets, the louder will be the Yoruba voice. And this is where you come in as the media group, in the sense that the more noise you make on our behalf so that people realize our existence, the more votes, the more people come to vote for us at the election, the more votes we have, the louder our voice. Now, I'm just going to close quickly with just a list of the things that the Yoruba Party can do with the Yoruba political voice. Number one, we can use that voice to encourage and energize the Yoruba community generally. We can use it to maximize the socio-economic and political opportunities available to us. That is, by having our own political party, we can fight for bits of the cake, as it were. By having our own Yoruba party, we can provide an authentic source of expert knowledge on Yoruba affairs, and we can facilitate direct exchange of ideas between the Yoruba community on one hand and the UK government on the other, something that we are not able to do now. We can ensure with our political voice that the Yoruba community was consulted in the formulation of any government policy that affects us directly or indirectly, or even affecting other Black communities for that matter. Finally, this is where my biggest interest is that we can use the political voice to go to court, to use political means to restore sovereignty to the Yoruba land. I'm going to stop there and invite any questions. I mean, I can try and translate what I have just said into Yoruba, but you will have to help me if I stray. Kí ni ìdí tá a fi dá Yorùbá Party lẹ̀ ní ìlú òyìnbó náà ń pè é nílùú òyìnbó?
Ìlú ọba.
Ìdí ẹ̀ ni pé ìlú ọba bàtàwọn náà lọ́ba kò lè jẹ́ ìlú ọba ìlú òyìnbó ìlú Gẹ̀ẹ́sì. Remember that the Yoruba refer to country as orílẹ̀-èdè. You know, the Yoruba concept of country is of a territory with its own language and people. Orílẹ̀-èdè. So to refer to England would be orílẹ̀-èdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì. That is the territory where they speak or spoke English. So ìdí tá a fi dá Yorùbá Party lẹ̀ nílẹ̀ yìí ni pé ká lè gba sovereignty is a little bit bigger than independence. Independence is òmìnira. Self-determination is ìdádúró. So nǹkan tá à ń wá ní òmìnira àti ìdádúró. So we want the two combined. And nǹkan tá a fi dá party ilẹ̀ nílùú òyìnbó ni pé àwọn Gẹ̀ẹ́sì àwọn ló jí òmìnira wa ní 1914. Àwa ti lómìnira káwọn òyìnbó tó dé. Wọ́n wá jí òmìnira lọ́wọ́ wa. A dẹ̀ fẹ́ gba òmìnira wa padà. Ibí ló wà. Ibí láti máa gbà. Nǹkan tá a fi dá political party ilẹ̀ nìyẹn. Àwọn Gẹ̀ẹ́sì òmìnira ìdádúró bá ti máa ń pariwo ẹ̀ lójoojúmọ́ nìyẹn. Nǹkan tó jẹ́ tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ nígbà kan wà ní Europe when they were members of the European Union. Wọ́n kúrò ńbẹ̀ nítorí òmìnira àti ìdádúró. Nǹkan tó fa Brexit nìyẹn. Nǹkan tó gbé wọn kúrò ní ìlú òyìnbó nìyẹn. Òmìnira àti ìdádúró. Ẹ dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé Israel àwọn tó wà lẹ́yìn Israel lénìí àwọn Amẹ́ríkà ni o Gẹ̀ẹ́sì ni o Faransé ni o Germany ni o gbogbo àwọn tó wà lẹ́yìn Israel àwọn náà nǹkan tán rò ní òmìnira àti ìdádúró. Nǹkan tí àwọn èèyàn wa ò mọ̀ tí mo ń sọ lóyìnbó tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ ni pé àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì àwọn òyìnbó yìí wọ́n kọ́kọ́ gba Yorùbá ilẹ̀ Yorùbá as equal. I'm not quite sure how you translate it. Wọ́n jẹ́ nǹkan kan náà. Náà fi wá ní pé ẹ jẹ́ ká so agreement láàrin ara wa pé a ní gbalẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ yín o. A ní gbalẹ̀ ilẹ̀ yín ni láíláí kò sẹ́ni tó lè gbà lọ́wọ́ yín. Pé nǹkan tá a kàn fẹ́ ni pé ká máa bá yín tajà, ká bá yín ṣọ̀rẹ́. Bí wọ́n ṣe wá sílẹ̀ Yorùbá nìyẹn. Tí wọ́n wá jí ilẹ̀ wa ní 1914. And although wọ́n ti jílẹ̀ wa o, wọ́n lè gba òmìnira àti ìdádúró wa can never be erased. And that is what we are fighting for. That is what we want back. And that is why we formed the Yoruba Party in the UK. Torí pé nǹkan táwa rò ní pé tá a bá ní political party tiwa, a lè pariwo, a lè lùlù, a lè lu ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ kí gbogbo àwọn èèyàn mọ̀ pé àwa Yorùbá wà ńlẹ̀ yìí, a dẹ̀ fẹ́ òmìnira wa. And nǹkan tá a kọ́kọ́ fẹ́ ṣe báyìí òun ni pé lọ́dún yìí wọ́n láti ṣe election ní ìlú òyìnbó ń bí tá a wà yìí. Yorùbá Party a dẹ̀ máa wà lára àwọn tó bá ṣe election yẹn. Ibi tí ọ̀rọ̀ tí mo bá ń sọ tó ti wà important yẹn pé ká lè sọ fún àwọn èèyàn wa pé àwa náà fẹ́ dúró fún election ní ìlú òyìnbó yìí o ní 2024. Probably the election will probably be in July or shortly afterwards. So we're having to prepare for the election right now. Wípé àwa náà máa ní àwọn èèyàn tó máa jẹ́ pé ká máa ní ká dìbò fún. Nǹkan tá a fẹ́ tà dẹ̀ sọ ni pé numbers are important. Àwọn iye tó bá dìbò fún wa ló máa fún wa ní agbára láti sọ̀rọ̀. So I hope that I've done a reasonable translation of what I said earlier. Thank you very much. I'm now ready to take questions.
Ẹ ṣeun gan ni. Ẹ káàbọ̀ sí àìwò tilẹ̀ pé èdè Yorùbá òun náà ni èmi ò fi máa bá yín sọ̀rọ̀. Bàbá wa tí wọ́n wà níwájú wa, àwọn náà ni dókítà oníṣègùn. Bàbá wa Òní, àwọn náà ni wọ́n ń bẹ ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa tá a mọ̀ sí bá a ṣègùn Olúṣọlá Òní. Wọ́n ti bá wa sọ̀rọ̀ nípa wípé láti lè jẹ́ kí n tà ń lé tá a mọ̀ sí plan B or ká sọ pé plan C tí oníkálukú ń gbìmọ̀ kí ilẹ̀ Yorùbá kó lè bọ́ sí i. Wọ́n wá bá wa là nǹkan méjì ńlá nílò. A nílò ìdádúró eléyìí tí àwọn olóyìnbó ń pè ní self-determination. A sì nílò òmìnira ara wa tí àwọn èèyàn ń pè ní freedom, níbi tí a ti lè ṣe ohunkóhun tó bá wù wá nígbà tí a bá dá dúró. Torí pé Yorùbá wọ́n ní tọmọdé bá tó lọ́kọ́ ìnàkọ́, wọ́n ní tọmọdé bá tó nádàá ìnádà ni. Tá a bá wá dá dúró yìí, ọ̀nà wo la wá lè gbà? Wọ́n wá ní àwọn tó lọ sọ́tún, àwọn tó lọ sósì, àwọn ti rí àpẹẹrẹ àwọn kan tó jẹ́ wípé látara wípé wọ́n ń gbókèrè tafà sílé, ọfà wọn sì múlẹ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì ni gbogbo ohun tí wọ́n ń ta pápátá ló ní ìtumọ̀. Wọ́n fi ti àwọn Júù wọ́n fi ṣàlàyé fún wa, bóyá wọ́n tún wá bá wa tún sọ lédè Yorùbá ọ̀nà tí àwọn Júù gbà nígbà tí wọ́n ń bẹ lókè òkun tí wọ́n sì ń jà ní orílẹ̀-èdè Israel. Pé bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ, ilẹ̀ àwọn Yorùbá nìkan ló wà ní UK tí wọ́n ní ẹgbẹ́ tó lè sún wọ́n pọ̀ láti lè wà níwájú, láti lè bá ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n ń jẹ nínú àwo tán ganan ní White House láti lè bá wọn jẹun pọ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì ni Yorùbá tó ń bẹ nílùú ọ̀hún kò kéré. Ìdí nìyí tí wọ́n ṣe rò pé níṣẹ́ ló yẹ kí Yorùbá tó bá ń bẹ nílùú UK tó náà nífẹ̀ẹ́ sóṣèlú èyí tẹ́ fi máa padà sí Nàìjíríà wá ṣe ẹ kọ́kọ́ ṣe níbi tẹ́ ń gbé náà, ìyẹn ní UK, káwo ìtútẹ́ ilẹ̀ pa kó tó di pé yàrá sọ pé yàtọ̀ bá gba Yorùbá á dìbò fún pẹ̀yìnlẹ̀ wọlé. Ìdí nìyí tí wọ́n ṣe gbé ntàmọ̀ sí Yorùbá Party in UK sílẹ̀. Àkọ́kọ́ ìbéèrè mi ni wọ́n ti sọ mọ́ àwọn àlàyé tí wọ́n ṣe, ṣùgbọ́n màá tún wọn bi léèrè fún àǹfààní àwọn tí wọ́n ń wò wá nílé tàbí àǹfààní ẹ̀yin tí ẹ bá ní ìbéèrè tó lè ká ní ká máa wo ojú aago wa. Tẹ́ bá ní ìbéèrè kan lórí pátì yìí ń bẹ fún àwọn tí wọ́n bá ń bẹ ní ìlú UK nìkan. Òní pátì wà fún lo nẹ́tọ̀ọ́ láti darapọ̀. Èlú wọ́n tó bá sí nílùú UK mi ò rò pé o ní àǹfààní àti lè darapọ̀. Ara wọn tó bá ń gbé ń bẹ̀ òun náà ni o ní àǹfààní àti darapọ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì ni ipòkípò tí o bá fẹ́ dù ní ilẹ̀ UK òun náà ló ní àǹfààní àti jù láti wo irú agbára àti tó ní láti ṣe. Bọ́ ìbéèrè mi ní sà, ọ̀nà wo lẹ̀yin rò pé tá a bá dá Yorùbá Party in UK sílẹ̀, ọ̀nà wo ló lè gbà? Kí ni positive effect ẹ̀? Kí ni àyípadà ẹ̀ tí yóò mú bá gbígba ìjàngbá gbígba níní ìdádúró fún ìran Yorùbá nílẹ̀ Yorùbá? Ẹ ṣé púpọ̀.
Okay. There's something called I don't know whether you call it minority effect or minority influence. It's a term in psychology, and we can use example of Brexit, for example. Bí wọ́n ṣe ṣe Brexit ni pé àwọn tó fẹ́ ṣe àwọn Nigel Farage, although they were a small party, they kept repeating the message over and over and over again, so that the majority could hear what the message is. Sure, me.
Agboye, sir.
Over and over again, they were repeating the same message. When you do that, when you have that consistency, what happens is that your idea begins to filter through. People begin to hear what you say. The second thing is that the message has to be consistent. Kì í ṣe pé a máa lọ ṣe a fẹ́ lọ bá wọn a fẹ́ we want to take part in the election. A máa sọ pé a fẹ́ wọ́n Nàìjíríà, a fẹ́ restructuring, a fẹ́ fiscal whatever it is. No, one idea. And that idea is straightforward. We want the restoration of the sovereignty of Yoruba land. So, because when you are consistent, when your message is consistent, then the majority understands that your message is authentic. So the majority thinks or appreciates that your message is consistent, has value, and it is viable. Because otherwise you wouldn't keep talking about it all the time. So these are the strategies that small parties like UKIP use, although they don't put it in the sort of scientific labels that I've given it. But when you look at the small parties that are effective, that is exactly the strategy. And that is the strategy we are pursuing, in the sense that if we put ourselves forward for elections in 2024, we will be able to make as much noise as possible. And our message is consistent. Our message is restore the sovereignty of Yoruba land. That's it. We want the sovereignty of Yoruba land to be restored. Of course, you are going to have a manifesto, which I'm currently drafting. And you in the end, what we will be able to say is that when Yoruba land is free to make its own decisions, it is then possible for Britain to have the type of market that Britain had with Yoruba land in the 1900s. Maybe people don't know that the Yoruba land was perhaps one of the largest markets that Britain had in the early 1900s. So what we are going to be able to say is that when we have the freedom of Yoruba nation, that market, that singular market between the UK and Yoruba land will be restored. Because right now, Britain needs a lot of markets. And also, another part of that coin, or another facet of this self-determination, affects immigration to Britain. If we had Yoruba nation, which requires all hands on deck to build a new nation, our young people will not be going anywhere else because they'll be employed at home, just like Awolowo did in the 1950s. So when we are now you ask the question, what effect can the party have? The effect is to make it known to the majority of this country that we have ideas, that we're not just there, people who are zombies, that we have ideas to improve the lot of the British. And I've given you two examples. One is that if you have a sovereign Yoruba nation where all hands are on deck, because you have to build this nation, the first thing that will benefit Britain is that there will be trade, which is specifically to Yoruba land, just like it was envisaged in the Treaty of 1888. And the second thing is that immigration will be less, because our young people will not need to leave Yoruba land to come to England. Because part of the reason why we have all the people at Japan is because of the quota system, Nigeria's quota system, where people who are undeserving get the jobs, and those who are deserving have to go outside Nigeria to go and get jobs. So when you ask me what is the effect, you can see how we get the message across that assist us with self-determination, assist us with independence. Am I still with you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are with me, sir.
Okay, I seem to have disappeared from my own.
No,
anyway,
I'm with you, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't seem to be able to see anybody anymore. Anyway, since you can see me, that's fine. So basically, that is the effect.
Your camera is off, sir.
Your camera, sir.
My camera is off.
Yes.
How did I get into this wahala?
Yes, your camera is off. Mic, then camera. Camera, it's blocked.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I've seen it now. Yes. Do you see the connection? How ideas can change the perception of the majority. And the other thing that is important that people don't realize is this, that it is easier for a politician, somebody who is a politician in this country, to get the government to do things than for an organization to get three prime ministers when I was coordinator for Ilana UK. There's been no reply, even from Sunak. But after I formed the Yoruba Party, I wrote to Sunak, he replied. Because the situation is different. A politician is now talking, although I'm not really a politician, I mean, this is just me starting up. Is that a politician is now talking to politicians. So we are now in the same, if you like, the same, I don't know what, the same group. Whereas before, as somebody who's outside of the political system, who was in an organization, I could write letters to him 1,000 times, it didn't make any difference. But right now, at the election, we are going to be in opposition to each other. The Conservatives will be making their own statement. The Labour will be doing the same. The Yoruba Party will be making their own as well. So that's the effect of having a Yoruba Party. The effect should not be underestimated at all, because the situation is totally different. Because we are now fighting for the same electorates. They are going to have their manifesto, so are we. They are going to appeal to the public, so will we. And at the end of the day, it is the person who convinces the public that the public is going to vote for. Particularly now that we can appeal to the Yoruba people. I mean, there are about 120,000 Yoruba people in London. That's 2 parliamentary constituencies in London that have Yoruba majority. Why should they not vote for Yoruba Party? What is Labour Party going to do for them? Or the Conservatives? The Yorubas have the opportunity in 2 constituencies in London to elect a Yoruba Party MP. So that's the difference. That's the situation we're in now compared to what we were a month or 2 ago. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, actually, Gandhi, actually, Lati Ataro. She wasn't Benny, but was out there. Yeah, actually, Gandhi. Yeah, Mr. Amide fún mi ní kò ṣẹjọ. Ẹ ṣé. Ṣé Gandhi adúpẹ́. Ìbéèrè mi tí màá tún béèrè tí ó máa jẹ́ ìbéèrè ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì ó ní wípé òun náà ni ẹgbẹ́ yìí yóò gbà láti lè mobilize àwọn èèyàn. Kí sì ni nígbà tá a bá mobilize ọ̀nà àbí ọ̀nà wo lẹgbẹ́ yìí yóò gbà láti lè mobilize àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n jẹ́ ọmọ Yorùbá ní tòótọ́? Àkọ́kọ́ òun náà nìyẹn. Ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì ó ní wípé ọ̀nà wo ni ẹgbẹ́ yìí yóò gbà láti rí wípé gbogbo ohun tí wọ́n yóò ṣe yóò jẹ́ ìlànà àti tí wọ́n gbàgbé kalẹ̀. Ṣé kò ní di ọjọ́ iwájú tán kó jẹ́ wípé nígbà tí ìran Yorùbá bá nílò ẹgbẹ́ yìí láti gbèjà Yorùbá, gẹ́gẹ́ bí tá a ti jọ ń sọ láti bẹ̀rẹ̀ wípé this party going to help us to achieve the actualization or the self-determination of Yoruba nation in future, if God will. Ọ̀nà wo ni wọn ò ní gbà yẹ̀ kúrò ní ìlànà yìí?
Okay. If I answer the down the second question first, that is why the party has the title Yoruba in it, so that there's no mistake with anybody else that this party is a party of the Yoruba community. The same way as everybody knows, Scottish National Party is for the Scots and Plaid Cymru is for the Welsh. There's no, you can't mistake it. And the same with this is that Yoruba Party, as the name suggests, is Yoruba Party. That does not necessarily mean that only Yorubas will vote for you, because not only the Scots vote for SNP, not only the Welsh vote for Plaid Cymru. People who like your message will vote for you. And remember what I said, our message is going to be that an independent, sovereign Yoruba land will do more for Britain than Nigeria does, whether in terms of trade or in terms of immigration. That's the message we are going to be sending to the people outside there. That's how we are going to be convincing the public out there. The first question you asked was, how do we mobilize our people? That's the whole purpose. That is the whole purpose of having candidates to stand for election. Because don't forget, what if you stand for election, all your publicity materials will be, the post office will carry it free of charge. So you don't have to put stamps. But of course, you have to pay for the leaflets. So that's where we need donations. That's where we need money, because we have to print leaflets. We then go to the post, we then give the post office the leaflets, and the post office then distributes the leaflets on our behalf. Candidates will also go, for example, Peckham Market, our candidates will go there and distribute our leaflets that we are going to provide centrally. What we are looking for right now are candidates. If you want to be a candidate, a Yoruba party candidate, get in touch with us. Get in touch.
So àwọn èèyàn wa tí wọ́n ń jẹ́ àgbààgbà tí wọ́n ń lò wá ní tí bàbá sọ ni pé a nílò ẹnìkan tí yóò darí báyìí tá a mọ̀ sí candidate, torí pé gẹ́gẹ́ bí n tẹ́ ẹ sọ election bọ̀ tó bá di June, a wá nílò ẹni tí yóò ṣáájú, tí yóò ṣáájú fún election yìí. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ní UK, ẹ̀yin ni ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kàn. Tá a bá rí ẹnikẹ́ni tó nífẹ̀ẹ́ sí ọ̀rọ̀ òṣèlú, ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ẹlòmíì torí bí òṣèlú Nàìjíríà ṣe di jẹgbẹjẹgbọn tí jẹ́ pé jápanjáran tí ò ní wúlò ló jẹ́ kẹlòmíì ò sàn díẹ̀. Àmọ́ mo rò pé tìmọ̀ nínú ọgbọ́n àti nínú ìmọ̀ tí wọ́n ń bẹ ńlẹ̀ yìí tó jẹ́ pé bóyá àwọn náà fẹ́ nífẹ̀ẹ́ tí wọ́n ṣe tá àti bá àwọn kan tí wọ́n ní jókòó ní White House jókòó, ẹ kàn sí wa bàbá yẹn sọ, wọ́n ní kí ẹ kàn sí wa. So, Baba, let me just buttress what you're saying for a minute. Okay.
That in order to put your name forward as a candidate requires some bravery. Okay. You have to be brave. don't. You have to believe in the emancipation of Yoruba land. You have to be brave. You have to prepare. You have to be prepared to have the time, because once you become a candidate, you may be asked to come on television. You may be asked to come and talk on radio. Newspapers will interview you. So, oh dear, what have I done now?
I'm going, sir.
Sir. Okay. So you'll be asked to do a lot of things. So you have to be brave. You have to have the time. This is not something that Yamashi as some kind of no. This is real. This is serious. This is not a joke at all. So those who are interested, I can give you our email address if you want to contact us. It's info at yorubapartyuk.org.org.
Okay, that is gov.org.
Yeah, no. It's just it's info.
That's organization.
Info, yes. Info at yorubapartyuk.org.
So info at yorubaparty.org.
That's right. Oh no. What have I done again?
Ẹ bá wa fi nọ́mbà yín náà sílẹ̀ bàbá, ẹ bá wa fi nọ́mbà yín náà sílẹ̀ tí àwọn èèyàn lè pè, bóyá wọ́n lè pè yín sí tí wọ́n bá fẹ́ pè yín, tó bá nílò kí wọ́n pè yín.
Okay. I think at this time the email route is the best.
Okay,
let me explain why. I've never run a political party. I've never been a politician.
But now you started.
But what standing for election means is that, number one, I have to produce election guidelines for our candidates. Because there's nobody else who's going to, it has to be written. It has to be written. So that's number one. Number two, I need the article or manifesto. Meanwhile, I have to publicize the party by doing what we are doing now. I mean, the next two days, I think I've got 3 of these to do. I don't know how many will come up next week. And when the media in the UK gets wind of what we are doing, we expect that we'll be contacted as well.
Then.
So for me, telephone is going to be difficult for a while because I really have to concentrate, particularly on writing a manifesto that I've never done before. I've got to write a manifesto, which is based on Nkachimoso Ali. It is to the benefit of Britain for Yoruba sovereignty to be restored. Because once we have our own nation, Britain has a market, which is bigger than the market that it has in Nigeria at the minute.
Wow.
So that's number one. Number two, once we are independent and our people see that there's a lot of work, there's a lot of employment at home, because we are a new nation where we need all the people to do the work, there'll be nobody going abroad. What's the point? And the insecurity, it's never going to happen in Yoruba land. And that means that people who are migrating to Europe from Yoruba land, it's going to stop because they have no reason to flee. I talk about immigration. I always say immigration is an equation. Fleeing to Onsa Losibikan, fleeing from Onsa Bola, Onsa Kurunibikan. It's an equation. If you are not running away from somewhere, you are not going to flee to anywhere else. So if you can stop people fleeing from their home. Fleeing from, there will be no fleeing to. Tabani Shenle, Tani security, Tony Kalukunja Lenke, like it was in the 1950s. Even up to the 70s. I remember when I was doing my house job at UCH in the early 70s. Kò sẹ́ni tó tilẹ̀kùn yàrá ẹ̀. Kọ́kọ́rọ́ mọ́tò wà báyìí, orí tébù ẹ̀ ló máa wà. Anybody nínú wa ló mú kọ́kọ́rọ́ ẹ̀ á wa mọ́tò ẹ̀ á lọ síbi tó ń lọ á gbé padà á fi kọ́kọ́rọ́ ẹ̀ padà síbẹ̀. When I was in
mọ́tò ti lọ nú o.
In those days, nobody kò sẹ́ni tó ń jí mọ́tò. I mean, when I was a child, growing up with my grandmother, wọ́n kì í tilẹ̀kùn. Particularly in the hot season, from rainy season is April to October. Nobody is going to be afraid or whatever. It is the Nigerian disease that has brought insecurity to us. What I call the Nigerian disease. And all that will be gone if we have self-determination and independence when we get our sovereignty back. And as I said, our relationship with Britain will then automatically change. Automatically change. It wouldn't require economists. It will automatically change. Exactly. Automatically it will change.
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìbéèrè náà ló ti wà níbí yìí. Àmọ́ ní agbára Ọlọ́run, lágbára Elédùmarè, àdúpẹ́ bàbá wa Dr. Olúṣọlá Òní. Àwọn ni wọ́n ti ń bẹ lórí ètò pẹ̀lú wa tí wọ́n ti ń bá wa fi ọ̀rọ̀ jomitoro nípa tí a mọ̀ sí Yoruba Party in UK. Party yìí jẹ́ ọmọ tuntun tí mo sì fẹ́ gbogbo ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń bẹ ní UK, ẹ̀yin lọ̀rọ̀ ìkan o. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ní UK, ẹ̀yin ní ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ ìkan. Ètò yìí kìí ṣe ètò tí a fi mọ lónìí.
BGI TV yìí mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ ti ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. BGI TV mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ ti ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Àjànàkú kọjá mórí nǹkan fèrè, bàbá rìnrìn káwí parí. BGI TV, we are the pace setters. Bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣọ̀n station tí dòde.